Okay, so the title of today's work is making X the subject, or another title could be changing the subject. In my first question from page 302, I'm looking at question 1, part A, and this is my equation. And I want to make X the subject. In other words, I want it to say X equals and have everything else on the right hand side of the equation. From yesterday's lesson, we learnt that if we want to shift, or rather, we've got a perfectly balanced seesaw. B is on one side of the seesaw and X plus A is on the other. And if I do one thing to the left-hand side, I should also do it to the right-hand side to keep it in perfect balance. So if I subtract A from the left, I therefore have to subtract A from the right. Okay, and it will stay in perfect balance. If I take the same weights off both sides of a seesaw, it will stay in balance. This A cancels with this A, leaving X by itself, and on the right hand side now we have B minus A. I'm hoping you're looking at that and thinking straightforward. Okay, moving on over the page to page 303, and I've got an equation that says A times Z is equal to B divided by C. And in this problem, I want to make Z the subject, or isolate Z. To undo, or in this case, we've got a perfect seesaw and balance. And to undo multiplication, we use, what do we use? How do we undo multiplication in maths?
Division.
Thank you, division. So I want to put the A on the other side, so to get rid of it, I'm going to divide both sides by A. Okay, the A's cancel from the left hand side because Z times A divided by A is just Z. So Z is on the left hand side, and we've got B over C divided by Z, divided by A. Now, that actually happens to be the same as that. And the reason I know that, or I just thought about it then, is remember I can put A as a fraction. Yes? I've wrote A over 1, so it's as a fraction. This is actually also looking back at yesterday's lesson. And then remember, when you divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. In other words, I flip A and 1 upside down, and the sign changes to multiplication. And then if I multiply along the top, 1 times B is B, and I multiply along the bottom, I get AC or CA. So if you write it like that, you know, I'm going to take back because technically it's correct, but this looks a little bit neater. B over AC. Okay, with this one we are trying to make Z the subject still for 3D, and I'm trying to isolate the Z. So you can see that I've got Z on both sides of the equation. I need to try and collect the Z's on the same side of the equation, just like we would do if we were solving this and we were trying to isolate a letter. So to collect Z's on the same side, it's hard to tell where there are more Z's, whether there's more Z's on the right or more Z's on the left. happens to be the right, but you may not know that, doesn't matter. So I'm going to collect z's on the right hand side. So I want to shift this z over to the right hand side. That z happens to be on the bottom of a fraction. To undo it, so it has been this means divided by, m divided by z. How do I undo divided by? Times. Someone say times? Good. So in effect I'm going to times the left hand side by z, and I'm going to times the right hand side by z. If I times this side by z, it cancels it out and I'm just left with m. And if I times the right hand side by z, I should get, well, I will get z squared. You see that? Z times z is z squared. Okay, I'm getting a bit messy down here. Oops. Try that. Okay, and all of a sudden z's are on the right hand side by themselves. They're not on both sides, and I now need to start shifting letters, or these other letters, onto the left hand side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by a minus b. I'm going to actually keep those things together in a sense in brackets because they have to be done first before you can do the division. I'm undoing things in reverse order. So in effect I'm multiplying both sides by a minus b. It's great for this side. By multiplying and then dividing by the same thing, you cancel things out. So on the right hand side I've just got z squared, and on the left hand side now I've got m multiplied by a minus b. How do I undo a square? Don't divide it by itself. Square root. Okay. If you have 3 and you square it, you get 9. If you take the square root of 9, you get 3. So you're undoing a square. So what I'm going to do to both sides is take the square root. If I do the same thing to both sides, don't forget the seesaw stays in balance. Final answer, z equals, and you have to take the square root of everything, ma minus b. Can I simplify it any more than that? Not really. I could expand that bracket out, but it doesn't really make it any simpler. Okay, so that would be my solution for 3D.